Well, Rick, one of the fun things is, at least from my side of how we do this show, is I get to go into the back end and look at all kinds of crazy numbers and see where people are listening from and all of that. And I don't know, but my native country of Germany is hot for you.
Oh, you know what? There were two women
Uh-huh.
who were from Germany.
Uh-huh.
They had always come over. They were friends with Siegfried and Roy.
Ah, of course.
And when they came out to Las Vegas, they literally, I guess, kind of fell in love with the show as well, or my production. And every time they were there, they would come to see my show as well. And I'm going to tell you, this is fascinating. Dear mother and her daughter, and they saw my show 53 times.
Whoa.
53 shows.
Gosh.
And I remember that out there in Vegas. And then I just see them just literally sitting in the front row, looking up at me and just big smiles. I'm like, they're back again from Germany. They didn't live in the United States. They lived in Germany, and they were literally flying back and forth yearly. And I was always on their calendar.
Wow.
Then I'm here in Branson, and there was a fine gentleman, elderly gentleman, came and saw my show. All of a sudden, one day he'd just be there, and I'd see him. And then he'd be there the next week, and I'd see him in the audience. And one night I walked up to him and said hello to him and said, "You've been coming to my show. I notice you in the audience constantly." And he lived about an hour to an hour and a half away from the theater here in Branson. But he would drive in. He said it keeps him entertained. It keeps him busy.
Wow.
And he just, on his own, as a single person, would come out and watch my show.
Wow.
And he even beat these two lovely ladies. He saw my show 107 times.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So I do have a couple groupies.
Well, the thing with a magic show, it's unlike going to see like a singing performance or a theatrical performance where you kind of know what's going to happen. I've seen your show probably 12 times, I think. About 12.
There you go.
About
You're
12.
on the list.
Yeah,
You're on the list.
I at least have some status now. And you see something different every time. You really do. You're looking different places. There's really so much going on that I can see the same magic show over and over and not get tired of it either. But if I was going to a play, you would never catch me going to a play.
Right.
The same play with the same actors, et cetera, 12 times.
Yes. I feel the same way about movies. I may be able to watch them twice.
Yes.
But I'm not a person who's a connoisseur of the industry that much that I have to keep watching it over and over again. In fact, that's what makes it fascinating for me. Those that want to come back and see the show again and again. Live shows are a bit different, especially with the way I present the show, because there's always something new.
Yes.
And something unexpected. Last night's show, we lost all the air conditioning in the theater.
Oh, no.
For the first time in the 8 years I've been presenting this show, the air conditioning units went out, and we still needed to present a show. I couldn't cancel it. It got up to, backstage, it got up to 80 degrees. Now, if you've ever done, now I've done a lot of fairs at 100 degrees in the outdoor theaters, but this is an indoor setting, and it can be stifling with the lights on you. And presenting the show, I commended the dancers. Kudos to Tara. They're all resting today because of the presentation we had to do last night, and the show must go on.
Oh, wow.
But at least I was able to walk out to the audience, and there was no way they didn't know the air conditioning wasn't working, right? So, what do? You admit the elephant in the house. And so the first thing I did after I opened the show with the birds is I walked forward and I just stared at the audience and I just said, "It's hot."
I can hear
and I
you
said,
doing that.
we deeply apologize. And then I said, "Do me a favor. Only applaud when you need to. And when you do, applaud really hard, because the air between your hands is going to cool me off on stage." So
that sounds so much like you.
It gave me the chance to at least admit that there was an issue, that we were working on it. And halfway through the production, the air conditioning was turned back on, and we survived the rest of the show.
Thank goodness. Gosh. Well, I'm sure they were very appreciative that you did the show, especially the first half, obviously, because they had made the effort to buy the ticket and to show up and all of that. And you went on and you were suffering along with them, probably more. And I'm sure they were very appreciative that you didn't say, show canceled, AC's out, can't do.
Well, they stayed. The theater has plenty of air to breathe.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't stifling. But it was a scenario where if the audience members were uncomfortable, at least they could move a seat or two to the left of someone they were sitting next to, because it's just the body heat was even noticeable.
Oh, gosh. Oh, dear. All right.
All right.
You fight your way through it, don't you?
Yes, you do.
You've got to. Well, we've got to talk about Las Vegas. That's where we actually met, even though we should have met 1.5 million previous times all over Long Beach.
Right.
But it took Las Vegas for you and I to meet. And I remember driving into Vegas, and I don't remember what I was there for, probably a broadcasting convention. That's usually what I go for. And I saw these billboards, and there you were with one of the tigers. And I thought, oh, wow, because I love magic. I've always loved magic. I'd seen most of the shows in Vegas. I'd not seen yours. I hadn't heard of you yet. I remember I said to Randy, my husband, I said, well, we got to check this guy out because, well.
You love magic.
I love magic, and I love tigers. And I thought, and damn, he's cute. So I'm just saying the truth.
All right.
I'm saying the truth. So we went to the show. We made that our first show that we went to when we had our first break. And after the show, you and I met. So yeah, that Vegas was the place that we finally ran into each other after tripping over each other for some, I guess, 40 years.
Talking about the billboards and you seeing me on the billboard, let me just say something about that, because honestly, we love to chat. This is an awesome opportunity to just share thoughts. But I want to make sure that when you listen to this, people walk away really knowing not just me, but my thought process on success and dreams and all that kind of stuff. So I have often had people ask, what does it feel like to have your face up on billboards? And not only billboards, but billboards in Las Vegas. And in my particular scenario, my answer back has always been ticket sales. The success is making sure that the show is not only up and running, but it's a success. And to do so, the advertising is critical. And I got over really quickly seeing myself up on the boards, rather just making sure that I needed to be there so that people would come see the show. So as far as how it feels, I could say, yes, it's you drive by and there are your boards. In fact, we have billboards here in Branson. I don't even look at them. I just drive past them. I don't look up there and go, oh, look at me.
Oh gosh, of course not. You go crazy.
But that truly has always been the answer is it's up there because we need to sell tickets to the show and it's the way to advertise.
But it's got to be shocking the first time you're just driving down a street in a city where you live, because you lived in Vegas and you live in Branson now. And there's your face. That's at the first time. That's got to be shocking, Rick. Can you remember the first time?
I would say that I have to admit that being in Vegas and finally having my billboards there, it is something I always dreamed, something I wanted to have that meant something. It's just that one statement, I've arrived.
Yeah, proof.
And then, of course, after being there for 20 years, that's where it becomes a 9-to-5 job.
Right. No, of course.
It's like, okay, where can we put another board up? How are we going to advertise this week? Or where are we going to put an ad into a magazine? Those kinds of things.
But another question I've got to ask you, because I know people would want to know, okay, you have children.
Yes.
And what do the kids think when they're in the car and there's daddy on the billboard?
Now see, they use it to the hilt. In fact, my son Brandon, he's now in college and at the university. We literally had a conversation last night, and he was saying that he said, Dad, when I go out with the girls, he says, I don't talk about me too much until I find out. I was telling him, he says, Dad, what's the best way to talk to somebody? I said, the best way to talk to somebody is literally walk up to them and then just say, tell me about yourself. And that's all you need to say. And for the next 20 minutes, you're going to just sit there and listen to them talk about themselves. People love to share their life with you. They really do. So let them. And then when he does, he says, but Dad, then I tell him who you are. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I get to tell him that my dad's an illusionist and he worked with tigers and he does a big magic show. And I guess it makes him feel important. I said, Brandon, stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
But then that's when he says, Dad, you got to teach me some magic because it's a great way to pick up a girl.
So
that's a 24-year-old son talking to his dad. Well, Dad, you got to teach me card trick.
So when he's out at dinner, he can bend a fork.
That's right.
Right. Or, get the coin out from under the water glass and just some table mat. That's all he needs. Because that's the icebreaker at that first date dinner. That's always awkward. And we want to keep him off his phone. I've seen guys and girls on dates and they're texting each other. That's stupid. You're sitting across the table. So little table magic. Then, that first date's going to be such a super hit. But you're right. He cannot get dates because of who his dad is. That is so wrong.
But he does know. He has a great bit of magic that he can do and does.
Oh,
so
okay.
he's got it down. But he usually throws that first thing out. But my dad is such and such.
Oh.
I'm like, son.
Yeah. Well, Well, it helps to meet the right girl. Go for it, Brandon.
How many of us, though, try, and I know we all try to put our best foot forward in relationships, especially when they're just starting out. And my conversation to him last night specific was, Brandon, do yourself a favor. Don't hide who you are with the person you're with. Because at some given point, they're going to find out who you are anyway.
Right.
And if you try so hard to pretend you're somebody else than you are, then you're not relating to the person the way you should. They need to like you and or love you for who you are, not what you pretend to be.
Correct.
And sometimes those initial relationships, by putting your best foot forward, picking them up in a rental car that's not yours, and you spent a massive amount of money on a dinner that you can't afford. And, sometimes just being who you are and open with them and just enjoying, really relaxing and just not trying to hide behind a facade is the best way to go.
But that takes a lot of courage sometimes, too.
Oh, goodness.
Right?
I know. And I am talking from experience.
Oh, yes, me too. Me too.
I'm talking from, yes.
Oh, yes.
I've pretended often to be something I'm not. So
I think we all do.
Do yourself a favor and try to be you as much as possible. And don't fake it till you make it too much.
No, that's a cute saying, and people banty it about. But the problem is, if you make it on fake, you're stuck with fake. Because how do you say, oh, okay, well, now this is really what I do. This is really who I am. You can't make that U-turn. So you're stuck. And I have had friends who have been stuck with fake personas because they've built this contraption. And if they start to let on that it's fake and start taking it apart, they're scared now because people are going to know they lied, or they misrepresented in some way.
And they'll be caught.
Yep.
Especially in today's world, Facebook.
Yeah, all
internet,
social media. Yeah.
You can't hide. Your past is going to bite you in the butt. I'll tell you an experience I had. I was literally in my early 20s down there in Hollywood performing at the Magic Castle. And I was over at a photo shop that did 8x10 glossies for television. And I just needed a few glossies to give out to some agents. And I'm in there, and that's where a lot of people have their headshots done. And there was a fine woman next to me, literally, and I say it in kindness because she's a great looking lady. And they handed over her headshots. And this was before Photoshop. I can tell you that what they did to the photos made her look about, no joke, at least 20 years younger than what she actually was. And I thought to myself, I can understand. The frustration is you don't think they're going to hire you because of who you are. But when you do get hired and you walk in and they see who you are compared to the photo that you've given them, you're probably not going to get the job.
No, you're toast.
Anyway.
You're toast.
And there can be some tweaks here and there. And we all do. My brochures that I hand out are all Photoshopped. They're all cleaned up a little bit. You've got a wrinkle here or there that you can make disappear. But it was a moment where I just looked at the photo and then I looked at her and I looked at the photo and said, that's not you. It was her, but it was not her. So I understand.
Face reality.
Oh, goodness. I know.
It'll come back and bite you. Yeah, the little photoshopping, mine are photoshopped too. I mean, why not use the tool? But you could still look at my picture and still recognize me. So I think that's got to be the deciding point. As long as
still needs to look like you.
Right? Yeah. As long as you don't Photoshop yourself into a different identity, you're okay.
But look, the industry's had that problem. How many times have they said, look at the Cosmopolitan cover?
Oh, yeah.
Or this and that. And they've literally taken 20 pounds off of somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Or it is just common in the industry. And I understand it. Yep. So I'm not saying something that you can or cannot do it. I'm just saying in my personal humbled experience, more often than not, be who you are and enjoy the ride with what you've been given and do the best that you got.
Yep. That's perfect advice, I think, for the long run. Okay, so you're in Long Beach and you're over at Disneyland and you're doing the Magic Castle, which is a big wow for me. I love that place. Was Vegas the target?
Vegas was the target.
That was it. That's the ultimate place for you. Or is that an ultimate place for most magicians?
Maybe. It depends, I guess, on what you wanted to accomplish. I believed that I could do a large show. I loved entertainment. I was raised in entertainment, and I just wanted to go to Las Vegas. Fascinating thing for me is Long Beach is only 4 hours away. It's a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, it's simple.
To Las Vegas. So it's not a far drive. But my story, the way I got to Las Vegas, the trek that I made, was not a 5-hour trek.
Indeed.
I traversed the world and finally made it to Las Vegas after traveling the world. And it's just fascinating that I was literally so close to it and so near, and I just had to reach out and touch it. And I couldn't. But I can tell you this, as I share this information, I also realized that there needed to be the right time, the right place, and that I was properly prepared. Preparation meeting opportunity is critical. And when the opportunities arise, you better be ready for it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. So take us through it. How do you do this? Because again, every career has the place they want to be in. Broadcasting, it's LA or New York. You know, those are the two top hotspots. And you can see them from here, so to speak. But it's like, how do you find your path there? Yeah, yours is straight up the 15, but no, not straight up the 15. Doesn't work that way. So how do you plan, or do you plan to make the steps to get there? How did this all go for you?
Make the plan, but plan on it not going the right way.
That's and perfect for everything.
Okay. One is most important. There is no one right way to your goals.
Right. That's true.
Schooling is important and was important in my parents' perspective of my life. I knew there were certain things I needed to accomplish with what I wanted to obtain. But I can tell you, with the knowledge I have regarding everybody in Vegas and their shows, that not one of us got there the same way.
That's true. And anything, pretty much. Yeah.
Lance Burton, another illusionist, who was first at the Tropicana, then the Hacienda, and finally the Monte Carlo. He got to Las Vegas a different way. And he is actually part of the story of me getting to Las Vegas. But he was on the Johnny Carson show and seen there, and then brought in to be a variety spot at the Folies Bergère. And then once he had accomplished that amazing feat and being in that show, I believe, for years, he then moved his own show over to the Hacienda, and Lance Burton then became his own production, literally after being seen on the Johnny Carson show.
So wait, Rick, how do you get on the Johnny Carson show if you haven't hit Big Vegas?
Now, this is where Lance would probably have to step in. So if I'm saying something wrong and he calls me and says, Rick, don't try to tell everybody what my what my story was. I can just say I believe he was performing in clubs in Los Angeles, and he was seen.
Oh, okay.
And he was seen, and they put him on the spot, got the opportunity, and he nailed it. And what a talent he is. And it was just a wonderful thing to see his life, the way he got there, and how it all came together.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Larry Lee was the entertainment director for the Folies Bergère in Las Vegas, and he brought Lance Burton to the Tropicana.
Okay.
So where do I fit into all of this? Of course, you already talked about Disneyland.
Right.
Then I went on cruises across the world. And then in the process of traveling, I heard about an opportunity at a theater in Guam called the Sandcastle. And the owner of the Sandcastle, Mr. Mark Baldiga. And I reached out to him, and I'd been doing a lot of cruise ships by then. So I thought I had my act together. I'd been performing constantly for years and traveling and performing on great stages across the world. But I was still young, and I still had a lot to learn. And I sent out my materials to Mark Baldiga, and they reached out to me and said, you know what? We believe that you're right for this show, and let's bring you in. Now, they also demanded, though it was something that I wanted, they demanded that I put a tiger in the show. And at that point, though I did want a tiger in the show, now whether that was influenced by Siegfried and Roy and or whatever the industry, like I said, I always had birds. I had Moluccan cockatoos and macaws and doves. And I thought that tigers are definitely the most exquisite animal on the face of the earth.
Oh, yes.
At that time, and I preface this now because I know the world has changed and I know that there's a difference in what people think about animals and shows.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it was part of a venture that I wanted to be part of. So I went to the San Diego Wild Animal Park,
mm-hmm.
and they trained me there for the better part of a year in understanding and working with the tigers. And then when I went out to Guam, because they did bring me out to Guam, one of their trainers came with me for 6 months, stayed there. And after that last final 6 months said, there's nothing else we can teach you. You're now on your own. And from that point on, I officially was a tiger handler on my own.
Wow.
And I raised quite a few tigers from birth. There's going to be a lot of talk about tigers during our podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to go into that in great depth, but that's kind of how the story of the tigers came to fruition. And 1 became 2 and 2 became 5 and 5 became 10. And I had a lot of tigers. So here I am in Guam and
mm-hmm.
I'm performing for 5 years in Guam. But how did that get me to Vegas? All right. So when Mark Baldiga brought me to the Sandcastle, he said, Rick, I want you to understand that we're going to hire you, but you need to go through an agent.
Mm-hmm.
We have an agent that represents the Sandcastle, and you need to go through that agent. And basically, even though I had gotten the job, pay this agent a percentage of my performances because that's the way their agreement is
mm-hmm.
with the entertainment. They had an entertainment person who brought in the entertainment for the show. And I said, well, is there any way around this? And they said, no, this is a contract that we have and you need to work with this individual. I said, who is that? And they said, Mr. Larry Lee from the Tropicana.
Oh.
And I said, what? And they said, Larry Lee from the Tropicana. I said, really?
Perfect.
I said, oh my goodness. So I called Larry and I said, I'm Rick Thomas. I'm the new illusionist that you've hired to bring into the Sandcastle in Guam. He had never even met me or seen me.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even know who he had hired to bring into the show. And I'm just said, I guess we're working together. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Uh-huh.
And I thank you for the opportunity because why?
Mm-hmm.
Larry Lee was the entertainment director for the Tropicana Hotel. And Lance Burton was there. Now, remember, I'll tell you one thing that I don't appreciate.
Hmm.
And that is somebody going in and trying to take away something that somebody else has.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have the right
mm-hmm.
to go in and say, hey, you know what? You've got Lance Burton in here at the Tropicana. You know, I can do a better job for you or this or that.
Right.
Some ridiculous conversation.
No, that's nasty.
Yeah, you need to let people have what they've accomplished and what they have. There's other ways of going about it. There are theaters that open. If it's another type of show, great. But because Lance was such an amazing performer, mm-hmm. he deserved to where he was at. He was an icon in the industry, and I had no right to even suggest it.
No.
However, after about my 4th year in Guam,
mm-hmm.
Lance Burton moved to the Hacienda.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry said to me, Larry had finally come out to Guam and he came and saw my show for the first time after 4 years.
Oh, wow.
After working with him for 4 years, he finally came and saw my show. And he's sitting out there and he walks up at the end of the show and he says, wow, I had no idea what you were presenting out here.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you need to be in Vegas. I go, I've been telling you that for 4 years.
You were hiding out in Guam.
That's right. I said, I've been telling you. And so sure enough, once the contract ended,
mm-hmm.
he then brought me into the Tropicana Hotel. And I began my stay there at the Tropicana for the first 10 years of my stay in Vegas.
Wow.
And that is how Rick Thomas got to Las Vegas through Long Beach, California, cruise ships across the world, performing out in the middle of nowhere, right next to Japan, on Guam, a U.S. territory. And then finally from Guam, taking myself, my show, and all of my tigers back to Las Vegas and opening a show.
Uh-huh.
So that is the story. What do you have to say?
What I have to say is that you took opportunities as they came up. And that's, I think, an important point. Because sometimes when I work with broadcasting students, they have their target set over here, and there is nothing in between for them. I'm going from here to there. That's it. That's all. I'm going to sit right here and not move until they call me from way over there.
Yes.
And that never happens.
Yes.
And I'm guessing, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. When you were packing for Guam, you weren't going, hey, I'm going to Guam. Yay. Were
well,
you?
Actually, I was. Okay.
Were you a little excited?
Okay. Yes, actually, I was.
Okay.
The Sandcastle is a stunning theater.
Okay.
It was when I was there. I believe they're still doing shows out there.
Uh-huh.
And when I got there, remember my saying that it says, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
All right. So what did I do when I was in Guam? Well, I mastered my show. I
Mm-hmm.
gave it everything I got. I worked 2 shows a night. I had the privilege of being next to and working with stunning creatures, our beautiful tigers. I lived on the beach.
Oh,
I learned how to scuba dive.
it's getting
I would go
better.
scuba diving 2 or 3 days a week.
Oh, wow.
Even at night after our show, we'd get out on the boat and we'd go night diving, and we would dive for lobster at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning in the dark with flashlights.
Oh, my
We'd go out there and
goodness.
dive for lobster. We'd catch them and have lobster 2, 3 a.m. in the morning after the
This
shows.
is getting better and better.
I don't know about you, but I found a life that was absolutely, if you want your cake and eat it too,
yeah.
When they say that can't happen, yes, it can.
Sounds like it did.
It can possibly happen. You just got to look around you and see what you've been given and where you can go from there. So with the show and the opportunity to live on an island, as I had for such a long time. In fact, I'd lived in Hawaii for 5 years when I was doing cruise ships as well, bouncing back and forth among the islands when American Hawaiian Cruise Line was in existence as well. So I'd lived quite a lot of my life in that arena, and going to Guam wasn't a bad move.
Well, you took the opportunities that came along, and I think that is the key to you getting to Vegas. And by the way, I do want to point out there is a terrific picture of you in the book, The Tiger Whisker, with one of your baby tigers on the stairs of the sandcastle. And you can see just what a beautiful building it is just from the stairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
That's a baby,
Yes.
baby Kyra? Is that how do you say it?
Kira.
Kira. Oh,
Kira.
gosh. I mean, this tiger's
Now-
maybe, 2 feet long? She's precious.
Little thing.
Precious.
Yeah. You can hold on to them till they're about 6 months of age. Then they're just too big,
Too big.
big to carry around.
You know, I do want people to know, and we don't talk about this very much, but there are some of the most amazing pictures in the book, The Tiger Whisker. You know, we're talking about all these experiences of yours and the places you've been and all of this. But if you want the visuals, the book has them for you. And you've packed a ton of pictures in there, and they're beautiful. So
Now, currently, it is a digital book.
Right.
We are getting it printed. When I look at what books are now, what it costs to print a book, and what people are selling books for,
oh, it's crazy.
well, it's just going skyrocketing. And digitally, it's so much more affordable. I know but you know what? I think reading it on an iPad is just a beautiful way to read it, or a Kindle, whatever you want. The pictures are beautiful. Download the book, The Tiger Whisker.
You've got to see the pictures. And once you see the pictures, so much of what we're talking about just really comes to life. It's fantastic.
That took me a long time, is the decision on the photos.
Oh, I bet.
And that's another reason why it costs so much money, is because there's way too many photos in that book.
No, but
it's
they're
just
necessary.
page after page.
They're
I know.
beautiful. You got to have the pictures. So even if it costs a little more, you got to get all those pictures in. And there's even the special part at the back that's just loaded with pictures you couldn't fit in the chapters. So, we got to go through all of that. I think the whole key, and again, everybody gets to where they're trying to go in a different way. I think that's true in most professions. There's no one set road, but you have to make your choices. And you made some very appropriate choices that got you into where you wanted to be more than anywhere else, and that's Las Vegas.
Yeah. So here we are. Young entertainers have come to me often and said, how did you get to Vegas? Well, we just told you the story, but my answer to them is, you don't want to know. And sometimes I say that because you have to give it everything you've got. It has to be a passion, a wish, a want, a desire. You need to truly want for something to happen, for it to succeed in the way it needs to, especially in Las Vegas. There is no right way to get there. But I will also tell you this. I believe that not everyone deserves to perform in Vegas. I'm not going to downplay people's talents, but let's talk about Vegas. Okay. Look at what I did before I got there. My years of performances, hundreds and thousands of shows to master what I had before I even got there. So this is my belief. I don't believe anyone deserves to perform in Vegas. Anyone has the right to perform in Vegas. They have a right to follow their dreams.
Sure.
They have a right to pursue their dreams, but not the right to perform in Vegas. I believe that it comes through success. I think that the shows in Vegas should be shows that are already a success somewhere else.
That makes
or
sense.
they've become something before they got there. I've seen many producers and entertainers come into Las Vegas to try to make it in Las Vegas. And many of them simply fail because they aren't somebody before they got there.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Vegas and you look at the shows, they're usually the superstars.
Yeah, indeed.
They're people that have already proven their worth. And once they get to Las Vegas, they're going to sell tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is make sure you had a show before you got there. There's also a saying, how do you leave Las Vegas with $1 million? You start with 2.
Oh, dear.
And it's the same thing in the entertainment industry. I've watched producers come in with millions of dollars and lose it, just like somebody putting it on red or black in Las Vegas. And they'll come to me, and I had one show that was in my theater that came into the theater. They played opposite my show, invested, I think, $3 or $4 million. And within 2 months, the show had closed. They came to me and said, where's your staying power? How'd you pull this off in Las Vegas? And my literal words to them were, I was a show before I got here.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to create something and cross my fingers that while I was trying to figure out what to do, you don't have that time in Las Vegas. You don't have time to put together a project with all the people that need to be paid and taken care of, and a theater and a casino and all of this, and then put a show together that has no driving force. I can tell you this. We have what's called in the entertainment business a soft opening.
Right.
And a soft opening is because there are things that you need to tweak when you open the show that you need to get up and running before the grand opening. And that's what a soft opening is. So sometimes when we sell tickets, we'll tell the public, this is a soft opening, which means tonight, maybe sometime during the middle of the show, it's going to stop. Why? We don't know, because it's a soft opening.
Right.
And there might be a problem.
Right. Working the bugs
out. But it shouldn't be an opening where you have no idea what you're doing.
No, you got to prove yourself. You don't jump into Major League Baseball. You come up through minors to prove that you're ready and you're capable and you deserve the shot, the big shot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, once you've gained that success, then Vegas deserves you.
It makes sense. You just can't leap to the top of your business.
Preparation meeting opportunity.
Yep.
And the opportunity was there. And when Mark Baldiga told me it was Larry Lee, I just about fell out of my chair.
I bet you did.
He was like, at first I'm like, I'm not going to pay an agent. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. They didn't do anything to get me my job.
Right.
And he goes, well, it's going to be Larry Lee. I said, oh, where do I sign the papers?
Exactly. How much does he want? But what an amazing connection. That was the key for you. You needed that thing to click. And what are the odds, really, that all would have happened? They're infinitesimal.
Now, I had reached out to Larry Lee previously, years before, as a producer. In fact, when I wrote him, everything what we were showing was on videotape, literally VHS tapes, right? And I'm sending these tapes out to him. Anybody who knew Larry Lee in Las Vegas, you needed to know him. He was a mover and a shaker. He was a big deal. I wrote him, and my words to him, I have no intention of taking anything away from, at that time, Lance Burton. I literally told him, I said, you're just somebody I want to know in Vegas. You're somebody I hope you know who I am, because our lives may cross at some time in Vegas. And I want you to know what I do.
Yeah, that's
the video
a smart
was sent.
move.
And so when he finally came and saw my show in Guam, I told him the story that I'd sent him the videotape. And I said, did you ever watch it? And his words were, no.
Yeah.
So there you go again. Life is a bit of a challenge, and it just does not drop in place. So even though you continue to push, we're all striving to accomplish great things in our lives. Just don't quit. Don't stop. Winners or losers who get up one more time and try again.
Boy, is that
and with
true.
Larry, he had not seen the video. I needed to literally fly him out to Guam to see my show there before Larry realized that I was of any worth and that my show was worthy of being in Las Vegas.
And it took you 4 years to get him to come.
It took me 4 years, and on my fifth year, after 5 years there, the show was moved to Vegas.
Wow. But I think it was brilliant that you did take the even though you didn't watch the video, to take the step, knowing this is a guy who could help you in a huge way, to say, hey, I just want you to know I exist. I've never even thought of doing something like that. I think that's a brilliant step.
Just making sure that you realize that you're not there to and step on toes.
Right.
That is not my intention, nor am I attempting to do so. He didn't even care. I mean, he got the package and just put it to the side. But it was my way of trying to let an industry know that I was screaming from the rooftops that I thought I had something of worth to give.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that it took me years and years to become an instant success.
There is no such thing. There really isn't. People think they see somebody who wins a competition on TV, like one of the, talent competitions. And they think, well, look at them. They just went down and auditioned and got picked and went on stage and won, and now they got a record contract. No. How many years of singing and lessons and little bar gigs and whatever went in before you saw them on that TV show? Years and years and years. You just don't snap your fingers and become a star. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And people don't see all this backstory. That's why I love that we're giving this backstory, because you have an incredible story. The kid in Long Beach makes it, big as a world illusionist, but it wasn't just one giant jump from, plain old Rick Thomas at Jordan High School to Rick Thomas on the Strip, Rick Thomas on, the Boulevard in Branson. There's all that in between. And in between, you scooped up tiger poop even. So,
that's right. I did everything. I handled the tigers. I cleaned the tigers. I learned to work with them. And again, being out in Guam, I couldn't have been further away from Vegas. If you take the world and you look at where Guam is and Vegas is, it's like the opposite. How am I ever going to get back to the United States?
Well, yeah. You're in Guam. Most of us have never even thought to go to Guam. My goodness.
And I got to make a shout out to my daughter. She's listening to the podcast as well. My daughter Miranda was born on Guam.
Oh.
And she is Guamanian. And she is a happy camper. She's so proud to tell everybody that she was born on Guam. So hello to my sweet daughter, Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
And I'm so proud of her and her accomplishments in life as well. And I'm just excited that our families had so many wonderful things to experience.
Mm-hmm. It must have been fun growing up as a kid of yours. I think that would have been an exciting childhood. Definitely different. And setting you up for some real success in your life because they saw how you worked. They saw what you got for working hard. And so they know what goes into it. So I predict they're all going to do pretty darn good.
Especially my son who wants to learn card tricks.
Yeah, well.
Perform at the table.
Yeah, well, you taught me how to bend a fork once a long time ago. And
I did.
You did, and I can't do it anymore. So I need a refresher course in fork bending because it is a very cool thing to do at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You freak everybody out.
It depends on where you're at. If you're going to magically bend spoon bending or fork bending, sometimes depending on the place you're eating at, the utensils are not. They may be slightly expensive, and bending a fork could really turn the tables on you. So bring your own fork.
But magically you can straighten it back out, Rick. So come on.
Oh, no. Once they're bent, they never go back to their
forever.
shape they were before. Oh, goodness.
No, we've got to talk about something else real quick before we end this episode. And that is your own future financially. Because, boy, we are in a crazy time. FedEx chairman saying we're going to hit a crazy recession coming up. And you've got a little magic on that front too. And I think that I want to make sure we get some of that in today.
That's what it sounds like. The word on the street is cash is king. And I've been watching it, frustrations even in my own family. What do we do? What do we take our stocks and pull it and put it in cash as everybody thinks we should be doing? I'm not someone to tell you what to do with your life, but I can tell you how to diversify. Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky that I've had some wonderful people who've shared with me how to diversify. Of course, one is, the markets. But when you have people saying cash is king right now, I'll tell you what else is. Gold and silver, precious metals. They hold their worth. They are the insurance policy against a falling dollar. Our fiat currency that we now have, it's losing its worth constantly. It's being printed so fast that it can't catch up with inflation. So if you want to know how I invest in gold and silver, what I have done, where do I go? How do I purchase it privately? This is a big deal. Mm-hmm. You need to go to mansionofdreams.net/wealth and you fill out that little form and I will, believe it or not, no joke, I will call you personally and have a chat and tell you how I buy gold and silver and what I've done for my family and what I can do for you.
We'll put that in the show notes so you have it, mansionofdreams.net/wealth. And we are going to be holding a webinar on this soon, so you can go live on the web, probably on Zoom or Facebook Live.
Yep.
Not sure. We're putting it together
now. We will have a Zoom.
Yep.
We'll have an event. I know that, honestly, once we finally all got back to semi-civilized way of living a life beyond COVID, the last thing you want to do is get on a Zoom.
Yeah, but it'll be fun. We'll make it
But
fun.
It will be fun. Yes, I'll get back on Zoom and have a great event together. And please join us. It's going to be awesome.
And Rick will bend a spoon.
Okay.
Or a fork.
I will definitely do a few things, yes.
There you
Magic
go.
will be presented on the Zoom. You'll get to see part of my show. I will entertain. We'll have questions and answers. People actually get to see me do just some amazing things. And it's all about changing your life and putting a bit of precious metals into your pocket.
Mm-hmm. And we'll probably be doing that sometime in October, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Details to come. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.